What is up everyone, Andrew here, back with another video for you. So I've been kind of thinking lately, with all these phones that are coming out with bigger screens and bigger displays, what happened to all the small phones? You know, the ones that have that small screen, small form factor, ones that just feel good in your hand? Where'd they go? I feel like everybody's going with all these bigger screens and bigger displays nowadays, and that kind of leaves people who kind of like that smaller phone in the dust. But I feel like there's one phone in particular that catches my eye when I think of small phones, and that's the iPhone SE. Let's talk about it. So I've been using this phone for a couple weeks now, and it hasn't let me down yet, let me tell you. It's pretty capable, and it's worked wherever I've needed it to do, and I just wanted to share with you guys a few cool things that I found over the past couple weeks. So first off, let's get into the design of this phone. The iPhone SE is based pretty much exactly off the iPhone 5S that came out in 2013, but if you ask me, it's still a pretty up-to-date design, and it holds its own. It still manages to look good even by today's standards. So it has an aluminum glass back, but unfortunately there's no wireless charging like you're going to get in the new iPhones, which isn't really a big deal because you plug it in and it charges up just fine, like you'd expect it to. And it actually holds up pretty well to normal wear and tear, at least in my experience. And fun fact, it is the newest iPhone that comes with a headphone jack, which is pretty cool for anybody who still uses it. So overall, it's just a solid phone that feels good and looks good. But one of the first things that you're going to notice right away is the display. And I feel like it's still a good display even by today's standards. Definitely has those top and bottom bezels, but it still looks good. It's pretty sharp and it's hard to see the individual pixels at a normal distance from your face, so that's pretty good. It doesn't have any of those fancy rounded corners or the True Tone display like you're going to get in the new iPhones, but basically just a tried and true design that looks good. So the cameras on the iPhone SE are actually pretty acceptable and they hold up decently well, despite being a couple of years old. The camera on the back is a 12 megapixel sensor, which means that it shoots some pretty sharp photos and it looks really good, got some good contrast in there. It can also do 4K video at 60 frames per second, and it can even record some good slow motion videos, so that's nice. The downside though to the cameras is that the front facing camera is a 1.2 megapixel sensor, which means the selfie game is going to be lacking a little bit, but what's nice is that it does have front facing flash. Next up on the list is performance of this phone, which I'd say is just barely decent enough to squeak by in 2019. It does have the external design of the iPhone 5S, but it has the internal components of the iPhone 6S, which means that it's a little newer inside and it's more up-to-date internally. So with that in mind, it has the power to do all the things you normally do on a daily basis, like messaging, social media, browsing the web, that kind of thing. You're able to do those tasks more easily and more fluidly. And it does work well for the things that I needed it to do on a daily basis, and it'll probably be supported by the software for at least the next year or so. Right now it runs iOS 12 pretty smoothly, so we'll see what the future has in store for it. And speaking of the software, last year when iOS 12 was released, it was said to give some new life to older devices like the iPhone 5S, the 6, the 6S, that kind of thing. And the SE is no exception to that. Everything that I've thrown at it has been able to run smoothly, and I haven't had any trouble with things loading slowly or taking too long to get going. The only downside I would say is that the SE only has 2 gigabytes of RAM, which means that if you got a lot of apps open and you try to go back to one you haven't opened in a while, it's probably going to have to reload, but that's really okay because I normally, like force of habit, just clear out the taskbar anyway. These days, phones have gotten really good battery life, and usually you're able to get it through at least 1 day, sometimes 2, without having to recharge. And originally I was a little concerned that I wouldn't be able to get through an entire day on a single charge with this phone, but I managed to get by with like 15 or 20% every single day, which was awesome. So it's definitely not a 2-day phone by any means, but if you end up charging your phone regardless of the percentage every single night like I do, then it's not really going to be too big of a drawback. So last up on my list is the pricing of this phone. Apple sells the iPhone SE as certified refurbished on their website for $249 for 32 gigabytes, which I feel like is not a whole lot of storage for 2019, considering how much storage apps take up and how many photos I have. But they also sell a 128 gigabyte version for $299, which I feel like is a good step up for the price, and it's a good deal for the amount of storage that you get and the kind of phone that you get. So this phone's really meant to target a more budget-friendly audience, and that's what it seems to be doing, so that's pretty solid. And the good thing is that you end up getting a decent amount of performance for the money, which is a nice thing to have. Overall, this phone is actually a really capable device, and it can still hold its own even 3 years after being released. It has that form factor and the size that I feel like a ton of people would like, especially if they're younger or if they have smaller hands. I feel like it's definitely a good fit for a lot of people. Battery life is pretty sufficient, and you should be able to make it through a whole day without having to recharge. The cameras are awesome, and for me personally, I'm hoping that Apple decides to revive the iPhone SE and makes an up-to-date device that has that same size and design, but maybe just an updated display with some rounded corners, with True Tone, I don't know, that kind of thing to match the style of the products that they're releasing today. I think that'd be kind of cool. Alright, that about wraps it up for this video. I really appreciate you all watching. If there's anything that I can do better, let me know down in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. And also, if you have any ideas for a new video, that'd be awesome. I'd be happy to listen to your ideas and maybe check them out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a good day. Peace.